So we've been asking the question, how can parents find more self-care? And we're going to go back to our cognitive triad, starting with changing how you think about self-care. And I think this is a really important one because I worry that parents don't recognize the importance of their own self-care. They don't really get that this is essential to have and a need to have rather than a nice to have. And we know this, of course, from work on emotional contagion, showing the importance of kids not catching your emotions. But I think we just need to know this from the science of what self-care and kind of fun times really do for us in terms of our overall performance and our overall well-being. And one of the things I think we need to recognize is the importance as adults and as parents of playfulness and fun. In my Yale course, I talk a lot with college students about the importance of college students having fun, but I think this is a spot where parents are really struggling too. And they know it, from our survey, too worried about the untidy house, extracurricular activities, organizing medical appointments, driving around, doing laundry, helping with homework, what to cook. I'm not going to have time to have fun with the kids or have time with my spouse or my friends or so on, right? Fun kind of gets on hold. And we noted earlier in the course about Jennifer Senior's really lovely book on this, where she notes that parenting is all joy and no fun. But that's a problem because when we have no fun, bad things happen. And we know this because there's lots of research showing that remembering to have fun is critical because there are lots of benefits to having fun. We know this from some of the lovely work of Catherine Price, who is a journalist who has this great book called The Power of Fun. I recommend all parents read it. And what she's found in her work is if you do a deep dive into the science of fun, what you find is that it seems to be pretty essential for pretty much every good thing that parents want to achieve, from chillness of parenting to performing better at work to being a better spouse, et cetera, et cetera. Fun seems to help there. First off, though, how are we going to define fun? Because it seems sort of like an elusive concept. Well, what Catherine argues is that we need to think of fun as having three parts. One is this idea of kind of social connection, being around other people. Another is this sense of playfulness. And third is what she calls flow, and we'll kind of walk through these. First off, connection. Most of the time when you think about having fun, you are with other people. And this alone can be one of the huge benefits of fun because pretty much every available survey of happy people suggests that happy people are more social. They spend time with other people, they feel connected to other people. And this is one of the benefits of the kind of thing that Catherine talks about as true fun, is because usually when you're having fun, you're just literally with other people. So you're increasing the amount of time you spend with other people, and that alone we know can give you a big boost to your well-being. Second big part of fun, though, is this idea of playfulness. And this is another one that I think we forget the benefits of. We're defining playfulness not kind of like kids playing in the leaves, although it can be that. It's really doing something for which you're getting an intrinsic reward, not an extrinsic one. It's not a have to, it's not a supposed to, it's just kind of bringing you a sense of intrinsic joy. And this is the kind of thing that I think we so rarely do because we're doing all the stuff that we kind of feel like we're supposed to do. But the act of engaging in playfulness is incredibly powerful. This one study by Magnuson and Barnett looked at this in college students, but the other work has been done in adults and so on, that just measured college students' amount of stress, their sense of overwhelm, but then also looked at the amount that they played. And what they found is that playfulness seems to be a stress reducer. In other words, it gives you a protective effect on your stress. So if you say, oh, I play a lot of the time, that seems to have a causal effect in making you also say, yeah, I'm not as stressed out. The idea is, and what's really interesting about this study is the more college students played, the more they also had other kind of stress-busting strategies too. So it was like the act of giving yourself the space to play seems to allow you other ways of kind of taking care of yourself too. It seems to be one of the best stress releasers we know about, just kind of doing something that feels intrinsically good. So that's connection, playfulness. But the final thing that Catherine was talking about is this idea of flow. And this can be defined as a mental state in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed, feeling this energized focus. You're in full involvement, enjoying things, you're kind of in the zone. This is the kind of thing that we know from lots of different activities where we feel in flow, where time is flying by, we're just kind of enjoying ourselves. We don't have the urge to check our phone or look at stuff. It's just this sense of deep involvement. This is a concept that researcher Mihai Csikszentmihalyi has looked at. He's a Hungarian positive psychologist who's gotten very famous for his book on flow. But he basically has found that flow seems to be a true optimal experience, right? It's one of the things that really matters for having a flourishing life is that you live a lot of your time in flow. And he goes through all these different activities where we can be in flow. Sometimes in athletic events where you're kind of fully pushed to your limits, maybe doing kind of hobbies and so on, engaged in music, like even baking or things like that. They're just the kinds of things where you just wind up in this sense of flow. And Csikszentmihalyi thinks that these are the things that we should be going for if we want a happier life. It's the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing ones. They're usually the ones where your body or mind is stretched to its limits to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. And this is something that's very curious about flow. Flow doesn't really come when we're just kind of plopped and relaxing. It kind of comes when we're like pushing ourselves a little bit. She sent me high finds that flow is this sort of interesting balance between the challenge that a particular activity requires and the skill that you bring to it. And you kind of want to push those not too crazy high, but high enough that it doesn't feel passive or relaxing anymore. These are the activities that matter. And it turns out that true fun seems to have this element of flow. If you think about the last time you really just genuinely had fun, my guess is that like you kind of had this sense of energy. You were feeling a little challenged, a little pushed, right? It wasn't the kind of relaxing, plopping down to watch TV. It felt a little bit different. So these are these three parts of fun. And the problem is, I think whenever parents get a little bit of free time, they don't engage in the stuff that's really fun. They don't engage in stuff that's social. They don't engage in stuff that's really playful. Maybe she's like checking emails. And they don't engage in stuff that has the flow, that has the challenging, right? And I think this is something that we need to figure out. So as we think about the importance of fun, right? It's stress busting. It winds up being these optimal experiences that make for a happy life. We need to ask the question, like, how can parents find more of this? And here I think Catherine Price has a really great suggestion. She suggests that parents do what she calls a fun audit, which is much more fun than it sounds. Parents see that word audit like, oh no. But what's a fun audit? A fun audit is a journaling practice in which you kind of write down and take time to think about like the last few times that you had so much fun. And no judgment here, right? That could be like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But in your brain, like, was that last time you had so much fun? And the key is you just kind of do some journalistic investigation of this. You say, who was I with? What was I doing? Where was I? When was it, right? And the key here is that Catherine's trying to get you to identify what she calls your fun factors. Because it turns out that sometimes it's just like people in our lives that whenever we're with them, it's so fun. Or we're doing a particular activity that whenever we're doing that is so fun. Or just like some context. Maybe it's always when you have music going on. You know, you like karaoke, you're playing music. Or maybe it's like when you're outdoors, when you're hiking or by water, it always feels fun. Or a particular person, right? The problem, Catherine argues, and the reason why we have to do this audit is like we're so disconnected from fun, we kind of almost forget the ingredients that go into it in our adult life. But this kind of journaling practice allows you to find those ingredients. And then the key is that you have to figure out, how do I get more of this? And literally start scheduling. If there's that person that is like the fun person, like you just got to book some time with that person. Or if it's like, no, it's like always when I'm outside, but you're trapped inside at work all the time, like maybe you just need to get out there. And you just have to kind of give yourself the permission to do a little bit of this. This is the fun audit. And so I think this is the way that parents need to start thinking differently. They need to recognize that having fun is really important. I think this is something that parents also have to do with their kids in our quest to kind of give them enrichment and the kind of academic success and so on. We sometimes miss that the fun can be a critical ingredient and kind of have a protective effect kind of to keep them from being so stressed out too. So maybe get them to identify their fun factors too, and extra bonus points if you have fun factors in common and you kind of engage with it yourself. So this is what we need to do to think differently. But then this comes with a component of something else we need to do to act differently, which is if you remember that the end of that fun audit was that you actually have to find ways to get more fun. And it's okay if this looks really silly, right? It could be that your fun factor as an adult, as mine is, I must say, is going to like a cheesy arcade and playing skee ball and stupid things. Like it's okay if it's like playing music with your friends where you're like blowing off work and you haven't done the laundry, and that's okay because you're just getting the intrinsic rewards. And again, even better if this is the kind of thing that can involve your kids too. But the key is that these things don't happen as naturally as we want. And the key of our busy schedules where we're working so much harder and spending so much time kind of on childcare and the important stuff, it's not going to happen unless we make room for it. And that's why you need to act differently. You need to find ways to get more fun. The other thing we need to do, though, is to make sure when we do have free time, we're not wasting it on what Catherine calls junk fun. Or what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, even back in the day, he was doing this work in the 80s and 90s called junk flow, where there's stuff that can like steal our attention, or there's stuff that kind of has this, like it was really easy for us to do, but it's not really flow, it's not really fun. We talked a little bit about this before, but like plopping down and watching TV or kind of staring at your phone. I think the problem is when we're feeling so exhausted, we just don't have the bandwidth to jump into something that's social and it's gonna kind of challenge me ever so slightly. And it means we can get stuck in the modes of when we have our precious leisure time, just using it for this kind of junk fun. And I think we need to find ways to pop out of that. I think this is also something we need to find ways to help our kids with too, because their natural kind of response is to jump to the junk fun too, because it's easy, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed. But when you're drawn to the junk fun, that's the moment when you really need to find the good, healthy, social, flow-inducing fun. And the key is that if you've done the thinking work ahead of time, if you have just like a little list of your phone of like, here are the fun factors that I need to get in, it can make it a little bit easier, because when you find yourself drawn to the junky stuff, you can maybe switch gears and do something that's a little bit more kind of truly fun or authentically fun.